Hey guys, welcome back to the Luna Syncrasy podcast. If you've been wondering where we are, you can talk to my inner voice, my intuition. It told me to take a break, and so I did. And I've been getting some hits that I should record a podcast episode, which is perfect since it is the full moon in Pisces, which feels very powerful. It is a blue moon, which means that it's the second full moon in August. But it's also a super moon. It's so close. If you go outside just in the next couple of nights and see that full moon, it's going to look so big and bright. And if you know anything about Pisces energy, you might be feeling a little bit emotional and watery and dreamy. I feel like we've been feeling this leading up to this moon. It's been a period of everybody just kind of wanting to go inward and feel some of these old emotions we have. Is anybody else releasing a whole bunch of trapped emotions, things that are kind of blocking you? These have just been coming up for me so much lately, and it's been awesome. I just keep feeling lighter and lighter and lighter, releasing some of this energy. And maybe that's why I'm ready to come back on the podcast. So today I wanted to talk a little bit more about how the moon relates to our personality. When I think about the moon, I can almost see it's like a square where it has to do with how much energy we have to get things done versus how much social energy we have. And so it's almost a 4-quadrant system. Like, yes, I have a lot of energy to get things done and I'm feeling very social. Or, yes, I have a lot of energy to get things done, but I don't want to be around people at all. And how this can really relate to our personalities. And this is also something that's happening in the mood of the day all of the time. So sometimes we can plan in advance, like, oh, I'm going to have a lot of energy on this day, but I'm not going to want to be around people. That seems like a good day to plan to get things done around your house, maybe. Or I'm going to have a lot of social energy, but not a lot of energy to get things done. Great time to not host a party, but go to a party. Things like that. Also, just understanding this and not feeling like we need to beat ourselves up. If you understand that this is the mood of the day, this is how you're wired, you can kind of give yourself more leeway and like, it's not my fault. I get it. This is the way it is right now. But know that it is going to change later on. So what am I even talking about? I am going into the cycles of the moon. So how big the moon is in the sky is like the phase of the moon. And I just read this book by Stephen Forrest. It was so fascinating to me about how our ancestors related to the moon. And with this full moon that's coming up, what you'll notice is that the moon comes out at the exact same time that the sun sets. And so at the time of the full moon, there's always light in the sky. As soon as the sun sets, the moon came out. And so when our ancestors, we didn't have power, they were still able to be outside. About a wild animal coming to get them, there was just more opportunity to be social as long as there was some moonlight out there. And at the time of the new moon, there's absolutely no light at night. And so at that time, it was impossible for our ancestors to actually want to do anything after the sunset. So they became a lot less social. Back in those days, they were working while the sun was out. And so a lot of the more social, fun things that were happening after the sun set. And so during the new moon, they weren't able to do that. During the full moon, they were. So from halfway between the new moon and the full moon to halfway between the full moon and the new moon, we have more than half of the amount of light in the sky. And so people were more social outside. They were able to do things with their family after the sun set. So they were no longer doing their work, but they were able to go have fun, go have a party, go hang out with their friends. So it's very natural for us to want to have more social energy when the moon is larger in the sky. When there isn't as much light, we're just naturally not wanting to be around people as much. And so that has to do with the social energy. But then there is the energy to actually get things done. So this is in some previous episodes what I've been talking about with our doing energy and our being energy. That's not necessarily a social energy, but it's more of an internal desire to get things done, to get things started, to initiate things. And in the first half of the moon cycle, so between the new moon and the full moon, we all are more excited to start something, to start a project, to start working on it and getting different things done. But then once that full moon hits, up until the new moon as it starts to shrink, we'll start to wrap things up, to put the finishing touches on it, and then to be done with it and put it aside, not want to think about it anymore. And so, what was cool to me about this book that I was reading is that he took the moon cycle and put it into 4 different buckets. And so, people who are born between the new moon and the first quarter moon, they are people who have the energy to get things done, but they're not particularly social. The moon is smaller in the sky, and so they don't necessarily want to be around people. It's not a let's all work together and get things done energy. It's more of an internal, I'm going to start this myself and see where it goes. So you have that energy to do things, but you don't necessarily want to do it with people. But then once the moon is in the first quarter and it's more than half of its size, then you want to start bringing people in. So you still have that desire to get things done, but you also have this more social energy. Like, let's get some feedback from other people. Let's talk to others about it. Let's go even just hang out. Like, when you have this high energy to get things done and you want to be social, this is a great time to host a party, host a play date for your children, to be doing things with other people. Once the moon is full in the sky and then it starts shrinking, so here your energy is going to start going down. It doesn't just like, nope, and now I don't have energy. No, things are starting to slow down. You don't necessarily want to be starting anything new. You just like, okay, I'm going to finish what I'm working on, but you're also still very social. So this might be a good time to go on vacation where you don't necessarily have to be working on your goals, but you do want to be around people and have some fun. And then once you're in the last quarter until the new moon, then your energy tends to be like, okay, I'm done with that. It's lower. You don't necessarily want to be around people anymore. And so this is happening in every lunar cycle. So we're all kind of feeling this energy in the background, but it also has to do with what the moon was when you were born. And so, for instance, if somebody was born between the new moon and the first quarter moon, they're probably really excited to get things done. They're very motivated in their life, like self-motivated and excited to work, but they might want to do it by themselves. So it's the same energy that you have within that phase is part of their personality. And so somebody who is born in that phase might feel really good when the energy is like that. It's like, okay, this feels familiar, this feels good. And it's the same with any of the other phases. But we definitely have been looking a lot at how the moon and our menstrual cycle line up. And it's so interesting because it's a very similar pattern for the menstrual cycle. However, with the menstrual cycle, we relate the new moon to having your period. But when you have your period, you probably don't want to get anything started. Maybe you want to start getting some ideas, but you're not really in the mood to get things done. So the first 3-5 days, it's more of just, let's rest, let's not do anything. But then as you go into your follicular phase, then your energy starts going up and your social energy is there. Now you're coming out, you're ready to start getting to work, to start being around people again. In ovulation, all of a sudden you have all of this energy, both social and to get things done. And then in the luteal phase, the difference here is that the luteal phase is half of our cycle, actually. And so we might start with a lot of energy, but then it slowly goes down. Then, not to get into too much detail, we all know how the seasons feel, but it's also very similar with the seasons. And then my mind started thinking about this astrologically as well. We all have our own birth chart. And if you've ever looked at your birth chart, there's 4 quadrants to it. It's like a circle on a grid. So there's the horizontal line and the vertical line. And if you were to look at those, anything on the left side is more about you. So it's not really a social energy. It's more about being yourself, about what your life is like. And if you're on the right side, it's more about your relationships with other people. Then if you look at it from the top part, that's more of a high go-getter energy. And if it's on the bottom half of your chart, then it's a lower energy. So I started getting interested at looking at things like, where is the moon in my own personal chart? Where is the sun in my own personal chart? Where is Mars? Mars is a planet of a lot of energy. So depending on where Mars is, that can also show us what our motivation is and where we want to put action. And so we can take all of these different aspects and get an idea of what our energy is like. And if this doesn't sound like something that you want to put together, but that you're interested in, I would love to work with you. I find this so fascinating, and I love to create a visual of, we can see, here's where my energy is, here's where my social energy is, here's where my motivation is. When is a good time for me to get something done? When is it a better time for me to rest? And I get so excited about looking at this because here's the thing. In our society, we try to push and push and push so hard. It feels like we're unworthy if we're not doing something. And so we can fall into a trap where we're just doing all of the things that society makes us think we need to do. And it becomes overwhelming, and we just feel like there's too much to do and we can never take a break. I remember before I kind of learned about all of this, if one of my kids got sick and they had to stay home from school, it just threw off my entire week. Like, I had to balance everything. How was I going to get it all done? There was no space in my schedule to add a sick kid and a doctor's visit and figuring out where they're going to go or to stay with them. And it was so stressful. And when things like that happen, what I have noticed is that for me, my body just became so fatigued, and I would pass out before my kids, or I would get these weird sicknesses that would put me in bed for a couple of days. And it was just my body's way of saying, you need to rest. I'm going to make you rest. And so as I've started looking at this and creating more space in my life and allowing myself to rest when the energy is there for me to rest, and to see that there's all of these cycles going around of being and then being, of going and then resting. And when we're aware of them and we listen to them, things just become so much easier. And it's allowed me to become the mom that I want to be when I'm with my kids. I'm able to be present. I'm able to be with them and be fully with them instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I have 12 things I need to do before they go to bed, and I can't listen to them talk about their day at school or build Legos with them. I wasn't being the mom that I wanted to be. And now that I'm giving myself rest, I'm able to rest with them. I'm able to be with them. And that feels so much better for me. I'm also more confident in myself. I know what actually needs to be done in my house. I don't need a to-do list 20 things long to tell me what needs to get done. If it needs to get done, it will get done in the time that it happens. And sometimes that might be a little bit later than my mind or maybe even my husband would like. But really, there's nothing wrong with doing things at the last minute. As long as it gets done, it gets done. But as I have started to do less, also, I've just noticed that my relationship with my kids have gotten better. I have more energy I no longer have these fatigue days where it's just like, I can't do anything. I'm just going to lay in bed. I mean, if I'm sick, it's different. But there were days I didn't feel like doing anything beyond my normal day. Every aspect of your life can actually improve as you give yourself space, as you give yourself time, as you listen to your body and listen to your cycles. And then you end up being the mom that you want to be, and your kids, they aren't growing up with that frazzled version of you. So I am creating this dashboard that's going to show you all of these different cycles and how they work in your life and how they look with your astrological chart or your cycle and how you line up with the moon and what that means for your energy. So I would love to know what you're thinking about this social energy and energy to get things done. Where do you lie? Think about which of those quadrants you lie in. Are you in the high energy or low energy, and high social or low social? And then look up what the moon was when you were born, and let's see if it lines up. I would love to hear from you. And thank you for listening. Hope to see you next time.